All right, welcome everybody. If you're just joining us, we have about 40 participants on the line. At this point, we should have way more. So let your teammates know that we have a very well-known, well-renowned speaker, and that is none other than Mr. Daine Clark. Now, if you haven't heard Daine's story, before getting started with Renatus, he was actually working for Apple, and he wasn't the typical guy in the blue shirts who's out in the front greeting everybody, welcoming everybody in. He was more of the shy guy in the back, counting iPhones, doing inventory, and he knew that he could definitely improve his personal skills. Around this time, he was also working as a roofer, and he was only doing it because it was in the family. His dad was a roofer, and at this time, he was kind of having some financial difficulties, barely making ends meet. He started looking for other income generation opportunities, and one day he found Renatus, and he saw value in it right away. So did his wife, and they plugged into the Renatus system, listened to his mentors, applied the velocity banking to pay down his education debt. And today, we fast forward to today, Daine Clark has now raised over $5 million from investors to lend on various real estate transactions, do different real estate transactions. And his secret is frequency and consistency. So he has grown his team. He's a PIT team member. He's recognized by Bob Snyder as a leader. And we're very fortunate to have Daine Clark as our trainer today. So without further delay, I'd like to bring Daine Clark on the line. Good morning, Daine. How's your morning going today?
Good, man. How is yours?
Mine's going great. It's even better now.
Good. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. And we'll get going. Good morning, everybody. All right. All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and get started and make a brand new one. So I'm actually coming from Lake Powell. I'm sitting on the beach right now and drove to a specific spot that I had just a little bit of internet. So I hope this works wonderfully for us. Okay. So see, there's already a couple of chats. Oh, okay, cool. So good morning, everybody. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. My wife and I were actually just talking because we're out here at Lake Powell, and we've got our 3-year-old that's just kind of learning how to talk and say whatever comes to his mind, sometimes embarrassing to us as parents. And then we've got our 1-year-old that's just starting to crawl around a little bit, and he just speaks a bunch of gibberish. But it was funny because we've got this trailer out here, and we're camping on the beach, and my 3-year-old mentions to us, he looks over and he sees a family that's next to us, and he starts talking about how they've got a tent and comparing, that we've got this trailer and they've got a tent and things like that. And so it's interesting that he's starting to notice that, there's differences. There's, I'm not sure how I explain that, but anyway, he's noticing things, and he's explaining them to us, his model of the world, if you will. And it really got me thinking. It's funny because you always hear, and I'm not sure if a lot of the people on the line are parents, or if you guys are maybe someday parents or never, whatever. But I've heard a lot of people say before that if you are let me think. Kids say the craziest things, and it's funny because there's no filter. Whatever comes to their mind, they just say it, and it's super cute, but also a learning experience. So my wife and I were kind of talking about that, and we're like, well, how do you explain to a 3-year-old the difference of that I don't even know how to say that. I'm sorry. My wife's asking me to move the truck. So give me just 1 second. Okay. So here's kind of what I thought. And I've heard people say this a lot, especially other people that I was learning from and things like that. But whatever, the easiest way to say this is everybody is getting exactly what they want. Everybody is doing the process of getting what they want or what they have. Okay? So think about this. In your life right now, whatever you have, you did the process of whatever it took to get where you are right now, or whatever you have right now, or whatever you've done right now, or whatever you've become right now. You did the process to get yourself to that spot of having, doing, or becoming that thing. And I feel like a lot of people are not in line with doing the process of having, doing, or becoming exactly what they want. And they're focusing on, and I'm going to tie this back into, a tent, whatever. But just that concept of, ask yourself, am I doing the process of becoming what I really want, or am I just doing the process of becoming of doing whatever it is that, maybe you've got a job, or, and I'm not saying a job's a bad thing, but maybe maybe you're doing the process of earning X amount of dollars in your life, or you're doing the process of taking X amount of vacations in your life, or spending X amount of time in your life, or, whatever it is, everybody's doing the process of whatever it took to get to where they are right now, having, doing, and becoming what they want. And some people don't really go for what they actually want because they just don't believe. They don't believe in what they want. And so the only thing that I can say is that they start doing the process of not getting exactly what they want, but just going for what they believe they can have, if that makes sense. So it all comes back to a belief. And so when we were explaining to my 3-year-old that oh yeah, they've got a tent, we've got this trailer. Well, what if they wanted the tent? It doesn't matter what people have. There's no status. There's no oh, we're better than them. There's nothing. They did the process to do what they're doing, have what they're having, but what if they wanted that? But then the only problem with that I have with that is, what if they want something more? Then let's start believing that you can. And you can apply this to anything, absolutely anything. It's so funny because if I even look at my previous Renatas, I used to, my wife and I used to drive down the street, and she would see a toy hauler and a big truck pulling a toy hauler, and she always used to tell me, Daine, oh my gosh, I want a toy hauler. I want a toy hauler so bad. And I grew up, my family, I should say, I grew up where my parents did buy a trailer at one point, but they hated it. And honestly, I don't even know why. I think it was just because we had all us boys and we'd trash the thing or something like that. We'd come in with dirty shoes, and my mom was a clean freak, and, but whatever, they hated it. So I always had that bad taste. And so every single time my wife would mention, like, oh, Daine, oh, look at that toy hauler, I'd always be like, honey, do you realize that's like $100,000 setup? I'm not going to, I don't want that. But lo and behold, and I should say she made me, no. But the more that my wife worked on me, I should say, she started giving me that belief. And it's funny, as there's this process that you'll find yourself in while going through your Renatas education. So the thing that helps you with belief is education. proof, if you see other people being able to do that, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, if he could, it's so funny. A lot of people knew me when I was just getting started. They knew me before I am what I am right now. And so when people see that proof of somebody else, like, oh my gosh, like Daine did that? Are you kidding me? Or even, I mean, Michael Huggins has a crazy story too. I didn't know Michael before he was the Michael that everybody knows today. But a lot of people that would have known Michael before he went through this personal development process would see Michael right now and be like, Michael? Like Michael Huggins? Are you kidding? Yeah. So just remember that is happening to you right now. As long as you're focusing on the belief in yourself of what you can have, do, become, whatever it is, just make sure that is exactly what you want, because what you focus on is just a representation of what you're attracting to yourself, what you think about. Okay. So anyway, education, proof, and a social proof, physical proof, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Relationships is going to help you along that process of making it, I don't want to say easier to believe, but you will become better at believing. How about I say that? So the more education you have, the more proof you hang around, both in social proof and actual proof, the more you are going to be able to, you're going to get better at believing in what you want. And the education, as well as the social and the actual proof, is also going to help you with the process. So anyway, back to process. Let's talk about this. Okay. So I think you guys understand what I'm trying to get across when it comes to belief and believing in yourself and seeing that. Now we need to establish the process. Okay. So whatever it is that you want, whether it's becoming something, doing something, or having something, I always say, and I think I mentioned this last week, but work backwards and say, all right, what is the process that it's going to take to get me what I want? Okay. And so start backwards and ask yourself, what is the last thing, L-A-S-T, what's the last thing that is going to have to happen for me to know, like, oh my gosh, and it's gonna trigger a memory in your mind of being like, oh my gosh, I got it. Like, pinch me. Oh my gosh, I just did something that I didn't believe was possible 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 9, 12 months, whatever it is, years ago. Yeah. So have that trigger in your mind, because that's the moment that this process is leading you towards. Okay. The process that you create. So let's say it is, let's say that something that you want is to become a 5-star. If something that you want to become, do and become a 5-star, then the last thing that as this example would be that you're going to enter in somebody's credit card into your Renata's business system to sell the very last sale that it took to help to have you become a 5-star. Okay, so if you own your combo, then you need to sell 2 combos. If I look at my example, so I bought my combo right off the bat. I sold 1 essentials. I sold a second essentials, and then I sold 2 extreme plus combos in a row. So that's how I became a 5-star. 1 essentials, another essentials, and then 1 extreme plus combo, 1 extreme plus combo. Okay, so for myself, it was entering those credit cards of a gentleman named William Abel, who is actually killing it right now. It's cool because this is like my very one of my very first sales. So William Abel, entering his credit cards, I went over to his house he was literally coming back from his honeymoon because he and his wife got married. And I went over to their, I shouldn't even say house, I went over to their apartment and we put in his credit cards. And it was funny because that was like one of the first times, actually, that was the first time that I had ever had to do this like on my own. And it was because I think my 5-star was busy at the moment. William was ready. And so we were talking on the phone. He's like, yeah, we just flew in last night. We're just kind of getting ourselves settled into our new place because, because they just got married. So they just come back from their honeymoon. And so I go over to his house and we're struggling to figure out how to put his credit cards in the system. And it was great. And that kind of a struggle is good, right? And so we put that in. And then I walk out of there afterwards and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a 5-star right now. And, as long as he doesn't cancel in 7 days, I'm a 5-star right now. Okay. So think about that. What is the last thing that is going to happen, that needs to happen for you to get exactly, or that you'll know that you got exactly what you want, or you became, or you have, or did exactly what you want. Okay. And then work backwards from there. Okay. What has to happen here in order to get to that? What has to happen here? What has to happen here? Okay. So you create that process. And what's funny is more often than not, the place that it's going to start is you have to hold your phone to your ear, or you got to communicate with somebody face to face, or maybe text or email or things like that. Okay. But you got to talk to somebody. I mean, I don't care what it is, becoming something, doing something, having something in order to get what you want. It's funny. You got to talk to people. And when I learned that, I was actually a little bit angry because, like Abby said, I was so painfully shy as a young kid, and even in my early 20s. I was so painfully shy that for some weird reason, when I bought Renatus, I thought that I was going to be able to create this millionaire lifestyle without talking to anybody. Like I didn't even, I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to own a bunch of real estate. And it was funny. So that was in my mind, like, yeah, I'm just going to own all this real estate and I'm still going to be the same person that I am today. I didn't really imagine myself saying, cool, I am going to become the type of person that it takes to be somebody that can own a lot of real estate and that can help and inspire other people. I never thought that was what I was going to become. When I learned that, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to learn how to talk to people. I was a little bit angry, mostly with my 5-star. And it was funny because you may find this with yourself. When you get frustrated, you always blame, oh man, there's a guy that got me into this. Oh my gosh, that person's terrible, whatever. But then you'll realize, like, you know what? This is what I want. And if I am going to do the process of getting what I want, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to become whatever it takes. I'm going to be the person. I'm going to become educated so I know how to talk to these people. I'm going to watch other people do it so I know how to talk to these people. And I'm going to see proof. So the more experience, education, and other relationships and things like that, the more experience you gain from doing these things, you just get better. You get better at talking to the people and giving them the service or the goods or whatever it is that they need, whether it's a house, whether it's an Extreme Plus combo or an Essentials, or you're letting them rent your house because you own it, or your commercial space, or maybe you rent to 100 people because you own a 100-unit apartment complex. Doesn't matter. It takes talking to people to get what you want, to be what you want, and to do what you want. Okay. So, did my iPad freeze? We're good. All right. Let me just check and make sure we're going to any comments here. All right, we're good. And just to make sure, is my internet okay? Can somebody give me any feedback and chat in and let me know, are you guys able to hear and see me okay on this hotspot? Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Perfect. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this. So ask yourself right now in this moment, okay? So let's talk about this process again. Ask yourself in this very moment, one thing that you want, okay? I'm gonna take through a little exercise here, okay? So ask yourself that, what do I want? Or if you're having a hard time, because if you're like me, then oftentimes when anybody would ever ask me that question, Daine, what do you want? I don't know. It was hard for me to always just like spit off things that I wanted. So ask yourself this question too. And don't necessarily specify this. You know, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, doesn't matter. But don't go longer than 12 months. In this amount of time, what would have to happen? What would have to happen in that amount of time for you to be like, oh my gosh, this was like the best 6 months of my life. This was the best 3 months of my, 12 months, whatever it is, okay? What would have to happen in that amount of time to be like, yes, oh my gosh, okay? Whether you did something, became something, whatever it is. Or ask this question. If you had $10,000, whoops, dollar sign goes here. If you had $10,000 per month, okay, this is just a way to get creative juices flowing. If you had $10,000 a month coming in every single month, what would you do with your time? Like, imagine what you would do today. What is it? The 22nd of May, it's a Wednesday, okay? What would you do with your time today? Would it be different than what you're currently doing, or what you have planned to do today, or would it be the same? Okay? So what would you do with your time if you had $10,000 a month coming in? Okay? And let's say it comes in on the 25th, so in 3 days' time, it's going to come in. Or let's see the 22nd. Let's say literally this entered into your bank account this morning at 12:30 a.m. Okay? $10,000. What would you do with your time today? So start asking yourself those types of questions. What would I do? What do I want? Okay? What would make me very, very happy if I was able to do, if I was able to be, or if I was able to get in this amount of time? Okay? And obviously, I think we've all heard, be careful of saying like, oh, this is the only thing that would make me happy if I get this in this amount of time. So, and I think you guys understand that. But anyway, start working backwards, okay? What's the last thing that has to happen for you to be like, oh my gosh, and just like wake up and say, holy crap, 3 months ago, I was listening to Daine and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was kind of arguing with myself. I'm not sure if this is even possible, but I'm going to do this, okay? So that last thing that's going to trigger your mind of what has to happen for you to be like, oh my gosh, I got it. Oh my God, this happened, okay? Ask yourself that. Okay, now work backwards. What has to happen in order for that to happen? And if you guys would write this down, don't type it. If you have access to something that you can write with your fingers and thumb, like a pencil or a pen, there's some scientific stuff, and I'm not crazy sciencey, but let's just go with it. There's some kind of scientific stuff that says that if it comes through your fingertips and your thumb holding a pen or a pencil, it's written on your brain. It's written in your heart. A lot more than it is just tapping, tap it out on your thumbs on a screen or something like that. Okay. So So put it in pen, ink, if you will. Okay, so ask yourself, what has to happen in order for me to get that? Okay, that last thing to help me realize I got it. Okay, now ask yourself, what has to happen to get that? What has to happen to get that second thing? So I'm just gonna, let's just keep going with this example of like a 5-star. You have to put in that qualifying sale. Enter the credit cards of that qualifying sale. Okay, so let's just say credit cards. Okay, in order to do that, that last person has to put in their order. Or let's even break this down even more, and let's say they have to find their funding. Okay, that last person needs to figure out, how the heck am I going to pay for this? Okay, which means that you're probably going to have that kind of a conversation with this person, like, hey, let me give you some ideas on how to find your funding. Okay, then that person is going to have to put their order in, which means you got to have that conversation with them. Hey, you like what you're seeing? Cool, that means we should put your order in. Hey, are you liking the idea? Does this make sense to you? Cool, that means the next step is we need to get your order in. Or maybe you don't say order. I usually disguise this, and anybody that has purchased run-outs for me knows, hey, let's create your account. A little bit less of a blow to be like, hey, let's put your order in. Hey, let's create your account. Okay, if you're liking this and this is making sense to you, the next step is let's actually create your account and let's figure out how we're going to find the money. Okay, so create the account. Before that, they need to see value. Okay, so I'm going to list off a bunch of things that could be valuable. Your local starts with an L, not a C. Okay, your local events. So back to this, see, I think I talked about this a little bit, but proof. People need to see proof. They need to become educated, okay? Because, I mean, they are in the same boat that all of us are. They just want what they want. And they need to learn how to start doing the process of getting what they want and believing what they want. So getting themselves educated, seeing proof, it's crazy. The same thing that works for you works for them. We're all humans, right? They need to see social proof and actual proof, okay, and get more educated. So local events, Thursday nights, Wednesday nights, Tuesday nights, Saturdays, I mean, house tours, all kinds of stuff, okay? So local events. After every event, it's that question, like, hey, how are you liking this? Is this making sense to you? Do you like the idea? That's my favorite question. I've never actually had anybody say no to that question. I have had people, when I say, hey, what have you thought? Like, what do you think? How do you like what you've been learning? People are like, I had some people, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of people say, oh yeah, this is great. I've never learned this before. I've never seen this before. It's fine. But if you go back to ask that question, like, hey, so is this making sense to you? Do you like the idea? Got that from Mr. Jordan Belfort, his Wolf of Wall Street, one of the number one, he ran one of the number one sales floors, made millions of dollars. He turned 19-year-old boys and girls into just absolute closers over the phone. I mean, he had young kids in their teens and early 20s making $1 million a year, just because he taught them how to have these conversations with people. Okay? Because again, it's just a conversation that helps somebody move forward in their mind. Okay, so local events, and you ask them, hey, does this make sense to you? Do you like the idea? Okay, is this making sense? Do you like the idea? Cool. Next step is, and I even actually like to list it out at that point. Next step is let's create your account. And then let's focus on finding the money. Okay. We'll help you. We'll help you find the money. Okay. If we help you find the money, is there any reason why you wouldn't do this? A lot of people, like, that's the biggest thing is like, yeah, I would do this. I would love to do the process of getting what I want, but I don't have the money. That's what a lot of people think. I said the same thing, and I paid 20 grand cash. I shouldn't say cash. I used lines. Paid for the whole Extreme Plus combo with the lines of credit. I didn't know I had it. Most people don't. Okay. Very rarely do I get somebody who walks up and says, and hey, does this make sense? Do you like the idea? Cool. We'll create your account and we'll find the money. I'll help you find the money. Very rarely have I had somebody say, oh, Daine, I already know. I already have the money. I'm ready. All right. I mean, that's happened a few times. Don't get me wrong. And you do this enough, then you'll come across it every once in a while. But most people are gonna need some ideas and a little bit of help. And we got to be careful with coaching people, but ideas and stories are awesome. That is like the best way to show people what's possible. Ideas and stories. Okay. So ideas and stories. I'd almost recommend the stories, just because you can give somebody an idea through a story. But anyway, okay. So every time they come to a local event, hey, is this making sense? Do you like the idea? And how'd you like it? What's been the favorite thing that you learned, or what was the biggest takeaway from this event? Okay. So local events, house tours are awesome. House tours. And then one thing as well, if you want to become good in anything, real estate investing, if you want to become good at closing combos, I mean, it's all closing. Learn how to, and you'll need a lot of practice. I mean, it just took me a long time to figure this out, but really get really good at that one-on-one interaction with people. Practice. Start practicing now. In fact, the number one thing, I may have said this already, the number one thing that I track in my business is that. That is the number one key indicator, is how many people did I get in front of one-on-one this week? How many? And I'm tracking that every single week. You can see that I've been tracking that for years, and you'd be able to see how many one-on-ones I've been able to do to make the amount of money that I made. So I think somebody's off of mute. Let me jump back on. Let's see. How do I mute everybody? Mute all. There we go. All right. And so if you look at my calendar, my average, it depends on if I'm out of town or in town, but let's say my average is anywhere between 5 to, I don't know, 5 to 7 one-on-ones in a given week. I think the most I've ever done is probably around 15. And obviously the least I've ever done is like 1 to 0 if I was out of town. Okay. But on average, about 5 to 7 one-on-ones per week. And I was able to generate multiple 6 figures of income with getting good at doing that. Okay. So start thinking about that. Yes, if you're new, then you're going to be leveraging the team. You're going to be leveraging the people around you and the community. And if you've got a 5-star that wants to work closely with you, then you're going to be leveraging that 5-star to work with you. Okay. Because maybe they've mastered it, maybe they haven't. And it's your time to shine and become, but just anyway, have that in your mind that this is what you want to, over time, you want to get good at. Okay. Get good at those one-on-ones. And again, it's just a conversation. It is literally, once I learned that, I feel like all kinds of empowerment just started flowing through me, because I was like, cool, I don't have to close anybody. I just have to have a conversation with them. And then at the end, have a very good conversation with them. And then at the end, just be like, cool, does this make sense to you? Do you like the idea? All right, here's the next step. If you like this, okay? That's literally I know we're not supposed to make it set or call it easy, but that's literally how simple I've had to make it in my mind. Because in my mind, whenever somebody said the term sales, I didn't like it. And I had bad taste. Now I'm like, sales is everything. I mean, I've been selling my wife for 6 years to stay married to me. And she's been selling me for 6 years to stay married to her. And that's not a bad thing, but we're always selling somebody. If you have a job, you're selling your employer every single day. However many days you've worked there, you're selling your employer on keeping you there. If you have, anyway, I think you guys are picking up what I'm trying to get across here. Your whole life, you're selling somebody. Might as well just start getting paid more for doing it. Okay. So having a conversation and then just asking that question of like, hey, let's, now that you know this, let's move to the next step. And that's really how I've had to make it in my mind is once people know things, then it's time to move them to the next step. And eventually, the more they learn, the next thing for them to start learning is from Mark Kohler in Tax and Legal Day 1 and Day 2, and from Chris Albin in Creative Acquisitions. And, I'm basically just spinning off all the essentials classes. So once they've learned enough from me and the other community events, then it's time for them to start learning from the big guys, the actual instructors and things like that. Okay. Because again, it's just a process. They learn from the community events as so much, and then they start learning from the actual classes. Okay. So before that, you're going to have to invite people to come and see this stuff. You're going to have to invite them to come to the local events, to the house tours, to the one-on-ones. Okay. In other words, one skill to get good at is setting appointments. Setting appointments. Yeah, so you'll notice like anytime anybody ever wants to talk to me, I typically don't answer my phone because I have set so many appointments and I'm so purposeful with my time that if somebody calls me, I'm probably doing something productive. That is the actual process of getting me what I want. And so even if I'm not actually in front of somebody, I'm probably working on something. Maybe I'm, building out a template email or something like that, whatever it is, because I'm gonna communicate to a lot of people, or maybe I'm improving a process to allow me to talk to more people in a given day, whatever it is. Okay, but I'll schedule appointments with myself to improve my business, and then I'll schedule appointments with my students that I'm working with, as well as the prospects that I'm working with. Okay, whether that's for real estate leads or for Renata student leads. Yeah, but anyway, get good at setting appointments. So, the bookend to that is if somebody calls me, I typically don't answer. I'll usually text them back and say, hey, I can talk to you at this time of the day, and I'll block it off in my calendar. I don't usually just answer phones because it rings. I will purposefully say, I will call you at this time of day. Can you make that? And I'll even send them like an invite, and say, phone call with, John Smith, and then question mark, and then I'll send them a calendar invite and say, cool, I sent you a calendar invite. If you can make that, just accept the invite. And I'll talk to you for 15 minutes at this time, whatever it is. Okay. It's funny. I do that with my own family sometimes. It drives them crazy. But somebody told me, if you want to schedule your life like a six-figure earner, then block off your time by the hour at a time. If you want to schedule your life with a multiple six-figure earner, block off your time half an hour at a time. But if you want to schedule yourself out like a millionaire, then block off yourself 15 minutes at a time. And so I'll literally tell people like, yeah, I've got 15 minutes at this time. Even if I have a lot of time, like here, let me pull up my calendar, and obviously it's going to be pretty blank because we're out in Lake Powell. But for example, if somebody says, hey, Daine, can I chat with you? Even if my schedule looks like this, I'd be like, yeah, obviously I'm probably not going to talk to them on Friday, but yeah, I can talk to you on Friday for 15 minutes, even though my schedule is wide open. I'm still going to let them know, hey, I value my time. So whatever it is you got to say, then we're going to figure this out in 15 minutes. If we need to schedule a longer call, then we'll figure that out in that 15 minutes. And that's totally fine. And let's actually sit down one-on-one, because the best place to do business is not necessarily over the phone, but being able to see each other, maybe on a Zoom like what we're doing now, or where they can see my screen, okay? So visually, you always need a visual aspect to when you're conducting business, because some people learn visually and some people learn more auditorily, and some people learn more audibly. But anyway, just come back over here. Okay, so get good at setting appointments and using that crap out of that calendar. All of us have smartphones these days. If you don't, consider investing in one. But use that calendar. Schedule yourself out by the 15 minutes at a time. It'll also give you feedback. So like, if I think I mentioned this before, but I'll go back through my calendar and look at it and say, and it'll provide that feedback of, cool, I know exactly why I didn't do my average of maybe 5 to 7 one-on-ones, is because I was doing too much of this or that, so I'll schedule out what did I do this week and provide that feedback for myself, okay? And which brings us back to right now in our timeline, okay? Right now, ask yourself, what is the very next thing that what can I do today to move myself closer to setting appointments, to create that value, so I can create somebody's account, so I can find their funding, so I can enter their credit card information in, okay? What do I need to do today to help me get that process going for an individual, okay? And usually, maybe in your mind right now, you've got names popping up. Oh my gosh, if you have any names popping up right now in your mind, write those down and do not ignore those promptings, okay? Names going through your head right now, write them down. Reach out to those people today. It doesn't have to be with any kind of agenda. Just talk to them normally. Hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you since yesterday. Hey, I haven't talked to you for months, years, decades, whatever. If you have names in your head, write it down and make sure you communicate with those people. The way that I would put that in my calendar, if I come back over here, is I'll make an event. So let's say I'm going to do this today, right after this meeting. I personally call this boxing. And if you've ever heard my box training, where when it comes to real estate investing, people fall in 4 different categories: passive investors, active investors, people that have properties and need some help, or plain old not interested. Okay, so I'd call this boxing. And then down here in the note section, very conveniently, you can put in names. And so this is how I do it myself. Is I'll make an appointment with myself, and I'll come down here and say, all right, I'm going to call Jim and John and Jane and what's another female, because we got to make sure there's a male and female, right? And I don't know, Ray. Okay, and so I'll put that in my calendar, and I'll say, all right, I'm going to assume maybe it takes me an hour to get through, a whole list of people, and I'll just call down that list. And if I don't get people, I'll leave them a voicemail or text, or I won't, because then if I leave them a text or a voicemail, then falls in their court. But if I just call and they don't answer, then I'll just hang up and I'll call them again, maybe later. Okay. So anyway, we're just about the top of the hour. Let me actually make sure let me check some comments here. Let's see. Keely, question on one-on-ones. Let's see, did you post it beforehand or?
It's just too much to type.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Keely.
Regarding one-on-ones, what qualifications tell you that they are worth your time for a follow-up? do you specifically ask them, like say they loved the event and they want to get started, do you ask them, like, do you know how your credit is? Or do you ask them any qualifying questions regarding funding before the follow-up? Or do you hold all of that off until the follow-up?
And you're saying one-on-one, correct?
Right, like after an event, you're talking to them and they loved it.
So if I need to understand, okay, cool. So after the event, so let's go back to the timeline here. So they see some value. This is a great question, by the way. And quick follow-up question from me: are you already a 5-star, or are you working towards 5-star?
I am 5-star, but I've only made 2 essential sales since then, and it's been over a year.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. You remind me of myself. Anyway, topic for another day. Okay, let's get this really fast, and then my family's outside waiting for me. So after that event, then you strike up that conversation. You know, how did you like it? You know, does this make sense to you? Do you like the idea? So you'll kind of gauge excitement by how they answer. Okay, and so that's one thing that I'll do. Now, I'm also going to give you some advice that is not going to last the test of time. In your situation where you're still new, meet with everybody. Literally meet with every single person that will meet with you, because it's going to give you practice. And one cool thing is you know, because unless you have gobs and gobs and gobs of leads, then let's create some systems to weed some people out. But early on, create the practice. Okay. That's what I did as well. And that's the only reason I'm saying that, is because that's what I did. You know, I failed a lot of times because I'd get a lot of people to be like, oh my gosh, Dan, I want this, but they just absolutely couldn't pay for it. And so, but I would still give that person, you know, let's say there's nothing they could do, I would still close them on, say, cool, if you can't pay for this now, then we're going to figure out how. And I want you working close with me. You know, essentially what I'm getting at is saying you're going to send me referrals, but we just make it sound like, oh my gosh, what an honor. Okay, I say, I want you working close with me, okay? Now, the way to do that is I want you to be watching me work. So you're going to call some people. You're going to tell them what you're learning and things like that, and then you're going to get them in front of me, okay? Bring them down to an event, introduce me, whatever it is, okay? But anyway, so you go to the event, you ask them those questions to start that conversation. You kind of gauge their excitement and their interest, okay? And questions that I will ask now are, let's say they just watched the follow-up. Well, a couple of things. Depends on which event. So if this is after a first exposure, where maybe they just saw like a Michael Huggins intro presentation, or maybe a Mitch Nelson style intro presentation, or, you know, whatever it is. The first exposure, sometimes it's a little bit too early to be like, hey, you know, how's your credit? Which we're not even supposed to be asking anyway. You know, they don't like us to be asking personal financial questions. But some of the best questions that I found is, okay, so sorry, back to this. First exposure, then typically I'll say, yeah, hey, do you like the idea? Does this make sense to you? Do you like the idea? You know, and they're like, yeah. I was like, cool. What's like your biggest takeaway from what you just learned? And a lot of people, you know, will say like, oh my gosh, like buying rentals down, you know, 0 down, whatever, you know, oh my gosh, velocity banking, all that kind of stuff. I say, and so I'll ask questions like, cool. Do you already see how that can help you? And start asking those types of questions, especially like velocity banking. Like, cool, do you already see how velocity banking can help you? Like, you know, and I don't try to ask like prying personal questions, but if they start saying things like, oh my gosh, yeah, that velocity banking, say, cool. Like, you know, do you have a bunch of stuff that you need to take care of? You know, or is it just like, you know, a few things? And so you kind of just try to gauge like an idea-ish of where they're at. And that will kind of help you realize like, oh, cool. You know, so, but one thing I also like to do, and I'll qualify them, is, do they have a job? Okay, most people with a job can at least afford an essentials, what they call it, a UGA essentials. Okay, because it's $425 down and $101 a month. Okay, most people can at least afford that for UGA essentials minimum. Okay, but yeah, do they have a job? And I'll start asking things like, let's see. Well, this is really just, getting to know them. But anyway, biggest takeaway, velocity banking. Like, cool. Does it already make sense on how you can do that and use, and even potentially use this to get started? Or do you need a little bit of help? And then you can provide them, some follow-up information, and by saying, cool, come to the follow-up. Or if you're gonna go one-on-one, then there's the velocity banking calculator. Calculator. Okay. There's a velocity banking calculator that you can share with them, and most people are going to look at that and be like, they're not going to spend the time unless they're like super devoted to doing what they just learned. But most people are going to need a little bit of help. So I'll meet with them one-on-one and say, all right, here's how this works. Now, I'm not a financial planner, so I'm not going to like I'm not going to do this for you. Okay. But let's help you figure out how this is going to work for you. Okay. And so I'll kind of gauge-ish before I set those one-on-ones. But it's hard to do it perfectly, and we're figuring this out because Renata's going through this whole compliance push and things like that. So we're learning, and we're learning all together. Don't let it stop you from making money. Allow it to help you push forward in making money, as well as making it so that we can make money for a very, very long time, and making sure that we stay compliant. Okay, so. If I try to, and Keely, I kind of went here and there and all over the place, but if I try to put that into the fewest words I can, is you just start asking them, like, what's your biggest takeaway? And then I'll ask them, like, cool, do you already know how we could find the money, or do you need some ideas? And then that will usually tell me, and more often than not, I usually say, I need some ideas. Okay, I'll say, cool. Let's sit down and figure this out. Okay. And then we'll go to the one-on-one, give them more value. And then when we go through the ideas, I basically just tell stories. I tell stories of people who paid for it with 0% credit cards. I tell stories of people who paid with HELOCs. I tell stories of people who, used UGA, used, all those different options, 401k. Oops. And then I ask them, say, so as I was telling as I was going through some of these stories, did you get any ideas of what you could do? Okay. And they should be doing this in the group follow-up too, where they give all these options, like, some people did it this way, some people did that way, some people did this. And so that even delivers an opportunity to say, cool, do you already know which one you could do? And then you just help them with that. Give them some ideas, give them more stories, maybe even connections with people that can help with that. So does that answer your question, Keely? I feel like I kind of, my brain kind of tangent a little bit here and there.
Super helpful. Thank you so much. This whole training was very valuable.
Cool. All right, guys, it's the top of the hour. So congratulations. Make it a great day. And I will see you all in a week.